Hey everybody, thanks for coming in. I don't know, can you hear me? They're asking if there's sound. Right now it's probably just quiet. Yeah, hopefully you can hear me. Hey, thanks for coming in. I know Nancy's letting people in, but as you come in, right on the screen, if you guys look, there's the link to the slideshow, and Nancy keeps putting it back in, the bit.ly Tech Tools Math Lesson 1. If you guys can go ahead and open up a tab and open up that slideshow, there's going to be links inside there that I want you to be able to have access to. So definitely open up a tab, go to bit.ly/Tech Tools Math Lesson 1. It's the same one that Nancy put in the chat, so you probably just click right straight from there. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to get started. I hear some people doing their yard work in the background in my backyard. So hold on, I'm going to shut the window. Hold on. Okay, that's better. We can eliminate some of the background noise. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a great morning or jumping on my slideshow there. Yeah, so let me go ahead and get you guys started. Again, the link is in the chat, and Nancy's putting it in there for us. My name's Kristan Morales, and I'm a high school teacher in Temecula. I'm also a tech coach for my high school, and I'm glad you came to visit me here today. I'm going to have you guys take a quick look at the next slide. I do have a sign-in sheet, so if you get on the second slide there and put could sign in, that would be awesome. That's also, let me see if I can put that link, that direct link right in the chat as well. Let me grab that for you and put that right in the chat. So I just put it in the chat. It's right on the second slide. And in addition to being a high school teacher, I also do work with Instructional Leadership Corps. And Instructional Leadership Corps is a cooperation between Stanford University and California Teachers Association. And about 6 years ago, there was about 200 of us teachers statewide who went out and were doing professional development in the areas of Common Core mathematics, English, science, and technology. And it's pretty amazing, but over the past 6 years, myself and my ILC team, we've provided professional development to over 100,000 teachers statewide. So this is just a sign-in sheet for my work with Instructional Leadership Corps. If you guys could please sign in, I'd greatly appreciate it. Stanford and CTA, they ask that I connect with at least 75 educators every year, and they just want documentation that I actually got to meet you today and got to do this presentation with you guys. So if you could sign in, that would be great. And then at the end, I will have an evaluation. Again, that's for my work with Instructional Leadership Corps. So I'll give you a minute to do that. In addition to my work with ILC and teaching high school math in Temecula, I'm also Q Conference Planning Committee. I'm the Q Conference Volunteer Coordinator, which right now we're looking for volunteers for both fall and spring Q. I'm a Q Rockstar presenter, and I come to this Google summer camp because I live in the Inland Empire and I love to be here every summer. Of course, this summer is our first virtual summer, but I'm glad to have all you guys here this morning, and I hope that you're making connections throughout the conference. Well, I would like to go ahead and get started. First of all, before we actually dive into the session, I wanted to just have a check-in. I think check-ins are so important during distance learning and remote learning, and really any learning. Kids want a chance to check in. So if you're on the slide deck, I'd like you to go right here where it says Desmos check-in activity and click on that. And I want you to get started on that. Last spring, when our school switched to complete, distance learning, and this fall, of course, we're going to be online learning, I started doing these Desmos check-ins with my students, and I want you to go through it. Again, just click on this link right here, the one that says click here to join our Desmos activity, and go through it. It's right on the second slide if you're just coming into the presentation. And what I found out through these Desmo check-ins I started doing with my students is kids were telling me how they felt. They were telling me what's going on in their lives. It gave students a chance to just check in and say something to their teacher. And there's a lot of pre-made check-in starter kits in Desmos. Like, you don't even need to make your own. And so I put links here to the one I'm using, plus some other Desmos activities here. But the Desmos starter kits are really cool. And as a teacher, I can see, like right now, I'm going to anonymize it. I can see, here's my teacher dashboard. I see you guys are coming in doing the check-in. You know, at our school district, it was a hold harmless last spring. And so I had some students participating and some students not participating. And what was funny to me is the ones that kind of stopped participating, they would participate in this. And they would I'm like, oh my gosh, they're back. And kids really want that check-in, and especially in a digital environment where we're going to be online in the beginning of the school year, you got to give a chance just to let kids tell you how they're doing with their life, and ask the question as you guys work through this activity. Get to the last question where it says, what would you like me to know? Sometimes the kids want to tell you something about maybe something's going on in their life. Maybe they just want to tell you they got a new kitten. I started reading comments like that, and it allowed me during my synchronous time with students to say, hey, how's your new kitten doing? How's that baseball game that you did last week? So these is a different way. I just wanted to point out that Desmos activities are not just for math. They really could be for anything, and these come from the Desmos starter screens, and you can just copy them straight from there, or even use this activity that I created. So I wanted to walk you guys through that, because I think those check-in activities are so important during any learning, but even more so when we're in an online environment where students need to check in with us and have that kind of conversation. So I recommend you do that with your students, and then you can see what people are saying, right? I see that most of you guys are still working on that, but I'm going to move forward. But I wanted to let you go through a activity, right? And then you can, of course, when you're doing Desmos, share how people are going. Like, I could share this and see everybody's mood meter. I could take a look and see what graphs people are feeling about each of these screens. Right, so when you have that, I could see their drawings, right? And right now I have you guys in anonymous mode, so I can share that with my class too. Maybe I want to actually let this be my opening activity one day during class, and then share some of this. Or maybe I want to keep it private. Either way, all the functionality that you normally have with a Desmos teacher dashboard, you have here, right? So before we talk too much about tech tools, I want to focus in on the 5 dimensions of a mathematically powerful classroom. This comes from the TRUE framework, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the TRUE framework. I see some of you guys are. This comes out of Michigan State and UC Berkeley. And when you're thinking about technology and how you're going to use it in your class, I want you to keep the TRUE framework in the back of your mind, because don't just pick tech to use it just for tech purposes. It should support something that you're trying to do to have a mathematically powerful classroom. The first thing you should think about is the mathematics. How can this tech tool that I'm going to use help me create more meaningful connections to students? Because that's why you should be using it, to highlight the math for a strong, rigorous course. And how can this tool sequence my lesson or help develop ideas in the course of the unit that I'm trying to deliver to the students? Then I want you to think about the cognitive demand. And I want you to think, when you're thinking about utilizing a technology tool for your math lesson design, is what opportunities do your lessons and the tools you provide allow students to make sense of those ideas, right? How can it work them through more authentic challenges, right? I want you also to think about equity and equitable access to the content. We have opportunities with technologies to think about who has a student voice, right? Who participates and who does not participate, right? All of us have had classes where we have that 1 or 2 students that are always raising their hand and they want to talk to the class. But then we also have students who we know have good ideas, but they're just more reserved. They're shy. They don't like to speak up. But you know what? Some of those students do want to speak up in an online environment, especially if you put it maybe in an anonymous mode or a chance where everybody has a voice. So when you think about technology, how can you think about creating opportunities where students all have a voice and can participate in the discussion that you're working on, right? I also want you to think about the agency, ownership, and identity, and what opportunities are we giving them, and how can technology help us support them being as powerful mathematical thinkers? How can we allow what we're doing for them to demonstrate student agency and ownership of the math that they're doing? And then lastly, what about formative assessment? How can tech-infused activities give you data that you can use immediately in your classroom to help lead you to the next lesson? Maybe give you the data today that you need to use tomorrow for your warm-up, right? Or so you can intentionally take that data and work it into how you're going to instruct students tomorrow. So I do want you to think about all of that when you're designing using any type of tech tool when you're designing for a mathematically powerful math classroom. Additionally, how can some of these tech tools help us with the standards for math practice? That's the one unifying concept from all, K to 12 are the 8 mathematical practices. And how can these tools help us, give opportunities for students to make sense of problems, to construct viable arguments, to give them student voice, to model with mathematics, and help us with the shift. So it should all be coming together when you're thinking about how can I design this lesson and use technology to help to support the goals I'm already being asked to do, like the math practices in my class. Okay, so this is gonna be pretty action-packed. I just wanna give you a big heads up. We're getting ready to rock and roll here. So I'm gonna show you a bunch of tools, and I'm hoping that at least 1 or 2 of them stick. Maybe not all of them, especially if you're new to technology in your classroom, but I guarantee you there's gonna be 1 or 2 that you're like, I'm gonna use that. Right? So what I did, I've been using technology in my classroom for quite a number of years now, and it really makes my whole repertoire of lessons better, more engaging for students. So I tried to just build a tool belt for you. So these next slides are different tools that you can use. This one, of course, has a lot of my favorites like Desmos, Pear Deck, Edpuzzle, Eduprotocols, Quizzes, Padlet. Like I use those all the time, and I'm going to demonstrate some of those for you today. Of course, my school is it's a Google Apps for Education district, and if you're a Google school or a Microsoft school, use those as your basic fundamental tools, such as Google Slides, Google Docs. How do you package information into those tools that you share out to your students? And for me, it's Google, and these are the Google tools that we use in my district, and that are going to be your foundational tool belt tools. And then I got a bunch of really awesome math tools like Geogebra. I use that all the time. LearnZillion has all kinds of great resources, open up resources, Teacher Desmos. If you like videos, like you're going to see, I use Mashup math videos quite a bit for higher level math, actually all the way up to like pre-calculus and calculus. Professor Dave is awesome. I use Math Reps, which is repetitions in math. I'll show you today. All of these are great resources that you can mix and match for depending on what you want to do, right? If you want some manipulatives, you can use Toy Theater. So these are just, again, stuff that I use that I think you can use. Also, Equatio, if you're trying to do things like the quadratic formula, polynomials, intricate math symbols and powers, install Equatio into Google Slides so that you can build your own equations as you're typing your Google Slides. Okay, even more stuff, right? There's your tool belt. And so probably right now your head may be spinning like, oh my God, tool overload. How do I get all of that into a daily lesson? And here's where I really want to sing the praises and champion Hyperdocs. Hyperdocs is what I'm using on a daily basis with my students and on a unit basis. And I didn't make them up, came from the Hyperdoc gals, Lisa Heifel, Kelly Hilton. If you go to hyperdocs.co, right, and I have a link to that later in the presentation, tons of pre-made Hyperdocs in different styles that you might like. The one I use is, I like a bigger Hyperdoc for like the unit, and then a smaller Explore, Explain, Apply Hyperdoc for day-to-day lessons. So let me show you what a couple of these look like. They are linked right in the presentation. The first one is this bigger one. Now, Unit 3, I teach high school geometry and pre-calculus. So like my Unit 3 geometry is parallel lines and transversals. So as I'm developing that unit of study, I'm thinking of a variety of different online activities and ways to engage students with parallel lines and transversals. So this is a larger Hyperdoc that I might give to my students as we start that unit, right? And you can see there's a lot of activities in here, from Desmos to Learn Zillion to an Iron Chef, Powtoons, Edpuzzle. These I do not do on one day. This is like, again, for a unit. So, and that this is a standard Hyperdoc template from hyperdocs.co. I have a link on my slideshow to this one so that you can see how could I package this stuff for the unit and then do those little chunks. So then once I kind of wrap my mind around my whole unit, then I go to a smaller Hyperdoc. Okay, and like I just got done teaching online summer school. I had a Hyperdoc for every single day. And in fact, this school year, I will have a Hyperdoc for every single day of the year. Okay, what it is, it's a roadmap, just like you normally would have written on your board in your regular classroom. You want the agenda for students. That's what this is. And it also links out to the activities you want to do. So I decided with the simple Explore, Explain, Apply Hyperdoc. And from a math teacher's point of view, I'm thinking Explore is like your warm-up. And in an online environment, Explore is your asynchronous work. What is your student going to do asynchronously, right? And then I think of Explain like my lesson, right? Explain is going to be my synchronous time with my students where I'm doing stuff with them. And then Apply, I think of that like homework, right? Or independent practice. So from a math teacher's point of view, like this made perfect sense to me, like warm up, lesson, homework, asynchronous, synchronous, online, right? And so my students get one of these every day and I ask them to do stuff. Now, typically the Explore section they do on their own, kind of asynchronously or independently. And then the Explain part I do with them. Synchronously, I pull up, on my electronic drawing pad, I pull up my Smart Notebook software and we start doing problems or having discussions together. And then the Apply maybe could be something like a quizzes, where I put a quizzes in homework mode and they get to play it over and over again each week or during the week to get their best score. So how I take all of those tools that I shared with you and put them together is I think of a big picture Hyperdoc and a daily Hyperdoc. So now I want to take you guys through some different tools. All right, so we keep that idea of, hey, I'm going to look for one or two things that I might want to use and then start packaging that into Hyperdocs. Okay, so you're thinking about your week. Let's go ahead and think about Anticipatory Set. What would we do? Well, I personally like to use Geogebra quite a bit for Anticipatory Set because Geogebra has interactive dynamic math applets that allow students to visualize what's going on, right? So let me show you Geogebra. So here's a Geogebra. Notice this is angles formed by parallel lines and transversal, and you can search Geogebra for whatever your topic is. Now, I can draw a static diagram like that on a worksheet or on my smartboard, But how powerful is it when students can move the lines and see, in this example, that corresponding angles are always congruent no matter how the transversal hits those parallel lines. And then more so, I can click on, what about alternate interior angles? What about a different pair of alternate interior angles? Can I click on this button and get same side exterior? And again, I can still notice same side interior angles no matter how I change the parallel lines. They're always supplementary. So rather than having me, go through all the theorems and say, everybody write it down in your book, in your notebook, I tell them before I teach them, go here and investigate and then write about it. So in my Hyperdoc, I'll say, here's a link to a GeoGebra. Okay, then I would come up with some questions and say, tell me how same side interior angles work. Then they have to explore and see it and write about it to me. So I would do that in a Hyperdoc by creating a one table, 1-by-1 box, right? So what I want to have them to type, because now look, they can type on here and it grows, like as they type, it grows, right? So that right there, I give them spaces in a Hyperdoc to respond to a GeoGebra. And I did that by inserting a table, just a 1-by-1 table. So I'll do that in my Hyperdocs. I mean, you can use GeoGebra also as a whole class discussion. A lot of times I'll do that too. But that's a great way to get an anticipatory set where you're getting students kind of engaged in what you're going to be teaching them, is to use GeoGebra. Another thing I'll do is I'll have students do a video on Edpuzzle. And let's see what Edpuzzle, if you've never used Edpuzzle, this is literally my go-to asynchronous tool. Used it every day when I was teaching online this summer, right? And it takes any YouTube video, and then you can turn that into a quiz. So rather than just assigning a video and not even knowing if they watched it, you turn it into an Edpuzzle comprehension check where it'll show how many minutes the students watched it, and you can insert questions, right? Multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, or notes. So let's go through what it feels like to do an Edpuzzle.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on this lesson. We are going to start out in my home state of New York, home of the Statue of Liberty, the world's best pizza, seriously the best, and the home of the world famous New Year's Eve ball drop at Times Square. Now we are going to go ahead and use Google Earth to take a closer look at the location of Times Square on the island of Manhattan. And now we can see from this map that the roads in New York City make a grid network of interlocking streets and avenues. Notice that our streets run somewhat horizontally and that they are all parallel to each other, and we should know that parallel lines never intersect. We should also notice that our avenues run somewhat vertical, and they intersect our streets in a way that makes them perpendicular, or that they form right angles. And looking at the map this way should help us to better understand why, for the most part, Manhattan utilizes a grid system.
Okay, so you can see it starts on a video, which, by the way, that's a Mashup Math. I put a link to Mashup Math in your tech tool belt. I love using Mashup Math. They're one of my favorites. I just take it from YouTube and then I insert questions. And then I can say, okay, multiple choice question, complete the sentence, parallel lines never intersect. They press submit, and right away you can see I got it right, 100%, right? It gives the student immediate feedback, right? And then you can continue, keep asking questions.
Now notice that Times Square is located along a street that traverses this grid system. Now, you have probably heard of this street before. It's called Broadway. is unique because it does not run parallel to any of the other streets on the grid.
Okay. And here I can ask a little comprehension check and see if I just check that one. Like, oh, you got it right. So as you're doing Edpuzzle, what I love about Edpuzzle, what I'll start doing too is I'll start putting in questions like once they teach the math, I do it like a mini homework where I'll upload a picture of a math problem I want them to do. And as soon as they see it happen in the video with that problem, then I'll stop it. I'll put a question with my picture of parallel lines and transversals and say, okay, now solve this one. And so I started getting away from traditional textbook homework. I would take those textbook problems and put them into Edpuzzle. Find a really cool video and start sprinkling in those pictures by just including a screenshot of the image, because in Edpuzzle you can insert an image and there's also an equation editor. And one thing I want to show you that's super cool with Edpuzzle is you do get a grade book. You know every single kid, how many minutes they watched that video, what their score was, and this grade book automatically gets put into Google Classroom. So if you're using Google Classroom, you can assign the Edpuzzle through Google Classroom and it will auto-populate those scores. So you never even have to go to this grade book and hand enter in scores. It's automatically populated in your Google Classroom gradebook. And also, like my school switched to Canvas, it integrates with Canvas too. So if you set up your questions to be all multiple choice, and then it'll auto grade for you. If you have open-ended questions, it won't auto grade for you, but it depends on how you want to set it up. So Edpuzzle is like one of my go-to tools, absolutely fabulous and easy too. When you're in Edpuzzle, like I'm going to go just to Edpuzzle, there's a lot of great teacher made videos. So let's say I'm studying, I don't know, fractions. Okay, I just search fractions, boom, right there. There's a bunch that other teachers have already made, and I can take and just use theirs, or I can take theirs and slightly edit it to include more problems that are more to my liking, right? Or I can just start fresh from any YouTube video. I can just click on YouTube. It's going to ask me to put in a link to YouTube. And that's where I use like a lot of math antics. Professor Dave. Professor Dave has awesome stuff for higher level math and mashup math. So back to our presentation, right? Those are some great tools for getting the lesson started in like a warm up or an asynchronous activity. And these are some of my favorite video places to pull from. Okay, now what else can you do to get them started? Maybe the beginning of the week you want to assess prior knowledge or existing knowledge that they may already know. I love to use quizzes, and I use quizzes with the Fast and Curious protocol. I don't know if you have that book, Eduprotocol, like this book right here literally stays on my desk. Eduprotocols by John Carippo and Marlena Hebron are lesson templates, lesson plan templates that you can use in any subject. And the protocol I love is called Fast and Curious, where you take quizzes, play the game on Monday, get the data to show you as the teacher which problem is the lowest scoring question. And then on Tuesday, that's your warm-up, that question that your kid scored low on. And then on Wednesday, you let them play again. I guarantee their score is going to go up. And then on Wednesday, you take that data, see where the low scoring questions are, and then reteach that or make it be your warm-up on Thursday, and then have them take the quiz on Friday again, and you're going to see scores go way up. So if you've never played quizzes, let's go. Let's do it. So I got a game set up here for you guys about parallel lines and transversal. Now, when you're in quizzes, you can just play a live game. That's what we're going to do. But you can also assign it for homework. And I'm going to show you real quick. If you sign up for homework, right, you could definitely choose the date that you want it. A week from now, 2 weeks from now, you can start it. And here's the cool part, quizzes, you assign it to your Google Classroom classes. And this is another one that as kids play, if you assign it in homework mode, those quizzes scores are gonna auto-populate in your Google Classroom so that you never even need to enter any scores. They enter themselves, right? So this is a much more engaging, fun way for students to do homework. And you can create the quizzes yourself from the homework problems. Like, don't just do it from a book, do it this way, the exact same problems, right? Or you can use pre-made quizzes that other teachers have made, right? And add it to your collection. So super awesome. And another way you can play it with the Fast and Curious protocol is to play it live. And so I'm going to show you how to play it live. You just click play live, press continue. Okay, everybody, and this is what I have if I'm teaching synchronously. When the kids come into my Google Meet, this is up on my Google Meet like computer, or in classroom, this is up on my smartboard. I want all of you guys right now, we're going to do this. I want you to go to a new tab, go to joinmyquiz.com and enter in the game code 1612247, right? All right, I got my first player. Come on in. There's quite a few of you guys. Let's all get in on this quizzes game, right? And again, this doesn't require, if you're going to play live, it doesn't require any work. Like, you don't need to put it in Google Classroom. You just bring it up and we just play live. If you want homework mode, that's what I was showing you before, where you can post it as a homework assignment. So I do it both ways. Do it for homework and like to play it live. Now, if you've never played quizzes before, you're going to see there's these memes and power-ups, and it's kind of fun. And at the end, we'll have like our leaderboard, first place, second place, third place, and so on, right? And while you're playing, just because our presentation, we don't, you know, we're kind of short on time right now, don't try to be super smart. Just give me the data, just play it, just click anything. Because all I want to be able to do is have you guys go through as a student, and then me show you what the data looks like when we're done. So we need to kind of get done quick, right? So for those of you guys in the game, I do want you to kind of get done quick so we can get the data, right? I do want to let you guys know, you guys are teachers, so you probably didn't write any naughty names, but like, let's say CP, I don't know what CP means, but maybe that's a code for something bad in my classroom. I can remove CP. You can remove your students at any time, and it will not allow them to come back in with that same naughty name. So if you're worried about that at all, that's how you can remove them. I tell my students, hey, you're getting your daily points, and for me to get you your daily points, I need to see your first and last name. So my students automatically put in their first and last name. Okay, there's only 29 of you guys in the game, but let's go ahead and let's get started. And if you want to join in late, you can, but let's go. Again, don't try to be too smart. Just get me the data. Go as fast as you can. Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys about 1 more minute to play. This is different from Kahoot in that students go at their own pace. And notice that I'm not controlling the screen. It's going at their own pace. Students get different questions. So when I'm in class, 2 kids that are sitting right next to each other are not on the same question at the same time. And they do it at their own speed. And what's different than Kahoot is at the end, the students can review all the questions. They can see all of their questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the game. I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of see how it works, but let's just go ahead and end for now and see what it looks like when I end the game. We got Kelly, Mike, and MW as our top 3 players. Woo! Right, and if you're doing this live with class, you can celebrate, and then you can see the mastery party that's going to be going on here. So, so every kid that achieved mastery. But here, the real thing with it is that you get to see the data. And if you look down towards the bottom of my screen, you can see that question 1 had 50% accuracy. Question 2 had 47% accuracy. Question 4 had 67% accuracy. Now, with that data right there, for me as a teacher, that tells me question 2 is the question that the whole class did bad on it. So whatever the standard was on question 2, that's where I would have my warm up tomorrow, right? I got that quick feedback, like who knows this? Now you can actually give this on Monday as like a pre-assessment, like what do you know already? And then from this data, again, build your lesson on Tuesday or your warm up or your intervention, and then give it again on Wednesday. And I guarantee you're going to see the scores go up. Now, what's really cool with quizzes is when I exit out of here, I get access to all my reports. And if I look at this report, I can see, like, here's the one we just played. I can click on it and I can break it down with player view. I can go through all my players and see what all my players, how they scored it, identify maybe some low scoring students that I might want to put in some intervention groups, right? Or I can look at by question. I can see here on question 1 that 50% answered angle 8, but there's 20% of people that thought angle 2. And maybe that's going to reveal to me as a teacher a little misconception that my students might have that I could teach on tomorrow, right? I could look at the overview of every single question, right? And connect it to the standards, and I could even download it, right? So when I play quizzes, it's a great way for synchronous, like do it live, or assign it for homework. Now, I'm surrounding all my lessons on parallel lines and transversals so that you could see how all these different tools could teach one topic. But maybe you're going to be doing, linear equations. Maybe that's what you're going to be starting the year off with. Just search up linear equations, a whole bunch of them come up. And if you like them, go ahead and use them. You can see, because you kind of like, when I'm on this one, linear equations from tables. Let's say I want to use that one. I just click on it and I go edit, and then I can start editing it, right? It makes a copy for myself, and then I can decide, oh, do I like this image that was included? 15 minutes, that sounds like way too long. My goodness, I'm going to change the time on that. I'm going to change that to a 2-minute problem, right? So you can change the time, you can change the answers. Once you're done with it, you can add your new questions. What I recommend you do is I recommend you start saving them in some collections. So I have folders. You can press save. I'm going to put it in my professional development folder, or whatever folder. I have folders for each class, and you're done. So quizzes, love, love, love quizzes. And I think that's a great way to get the week started, or to do with homework. Now, some other, I told you quizzes came from Edu Protocols, the John Carippo and Marlena Hebron book. There's other great protocols in there. One of the ones that I really like is this Sketch and Tell. And this is to slideshow, where you would give each student 2 slides to sketch and tell, where I think sketch, I think draw a geometry diagram, create a math problem and explain it. And here it gives you kind of some instructions on how to do sketch and tell. But the key with sketch and tell is they really have to sketch it. They cannot import images from the internet. So I could see my students doing this with parallel lines and transversals because they can use the line tool and set up some of their own lines. Then they can start typing in angle values. And then they can use everybody. I don't know if you've ever used the scribble tool, but the scribble tool allows you basically to write with a pen on top of a slide. And then you give them just a little bit of time to prepare their sketch and tell slide. And then you have a slide, 1 or 2 slides for each student in a shared class slideshow. And then I'd say give them the first 10 minutes to make their slide. And then the rest of class could be students sketching or telling the class about their sketch and telling them the math behind it. You have that built-in literacy piece. So students over here have to explain in words what their math is, and over here on the sketch side, what the math problem is, or a diagram that represents the pattern that they see, or a graph, or whatever they can draw. But the key is they have to draw it themselves. So couple ideas there for you guys for some anticipatory set. One last thing before I leave this slide is you might want to start giving your kids Quizlet flashcards. There's a ton of free Quizlet flashcards. Like this is more on parallel lines where they can actually have flashcards with definitions, with problems on there. Maybe there's some core problems that you want them to discuss. And you can start, rather than having them take a bunch of notes, you can do Quizlet flashcards, right? And make that available to them throughout the unit. And again, those are ones where there's lots of teachers that have ones already pre-made that you can add to your repertoire. Again, we're thinking about a mathematically powerful classroom and how can technology support some of the things you want to do. You want them to have access to vocabulary, give them a Quizlet flashcard set, right? All right, another tool that I highly recommend you guys use is Pear Deck. This is going to turn any Google slideshow into a two-way conversation between you and your students, right? And I want to show you how do you do this? Some of us, like I found this super cool worksheet on the internet, and I said, oh, that has to do with Dinky King and Mario, right? It looks really cute, like I want to do this. But I want students to do more than just find the value of angle A. I want them to tell me about it, and I want them to tell each other how they're finding these ideas. So giving me the reasoning, getting them set up for geometric proof, where they have to not just tell me the answer, but tell me the theorem or the postulate or the definition that goes behind it. So how do you take this worksheet, right, and you turn it into an interactive conversation? You go and put it into Google Slides and create Pear Deck. I want all of you guys to experience a Pear Deck session. So right now, I want you to go into a second tab and go to joinpd.com. And I want you to put in this code, MOOZK, MOOZK. And I'm gonna wait for people to join my Pear Deck session. Okay, and this is exactly how I do it. I just have my Google Slides open, I press launch Pear Deck, and this comes up. Every Pear Deck session has its own unique code. And when you're doing synchronous learning, this is fabulous because you can have this right when students are jumping in online into your class, have this up and tell them to go there. And then it's going to create a two-way conversation between you and your students, right? So whatever the topic is, whatever math you're doing, do it in a Google slideshow so that you can use Pear Deck, right? I got 22 students. Notice down here, it's telling me how many students have connected, right? And even if students jump in late, they can still get in because this little code will stay on your Pear Deck. You can show it at any times. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the slideshow. I see 31 students have already connected. I got 32. Right? I don't know if all of you guys want to get in here. You can if you like, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started because we're running low on time. Again, you can join at any time, joinpd.com, and put in the code MOOZK. Okie doke. So then I would say, okay, guys, we're going to be learning about Dinky King today and Mario. And of course, students would laugh because they'll be like, do you mean Mario and Donkey Kong? I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are, this is Donkey Kong's cousin. His cousin's name's Dinky King. And students laugh at me. Okay, and then I say, okay, go ahead and drag your dot to the cooler character. So right now on your Pear Deck, I want you to drag the dot to the cooler character. Who's cooler, Mario or Dinky King? Okay, and then here we go. Do you see now I show the teacher screen? You can see each other in real time moving your dots around, and I can even click on one of you guys and say, oh, that's Crystal. Crystal is undecided, right? So rather than doing like a thumbs up, thumbs down, where I don't get authentic voice, I'll use Pear Deck because you didn't get to choose by looking around the room and saying what everybody else was doing. You decided for yourself who was cooler, right? So you can do thumbs up, thumbs down, Pear Deck with a dragging dot. Then I could say to them, okay, can I get somebody to read what we're doing? I would read the instructions to the activity to them, have that, that's it. And then I could say, if I want, in Pear Deck, I can include a video. And of course, here I included a video to Adam Sandler Pixels movie, which I'm not going to show you right now, but it has to do with Donkey Kong. And then I say, okay, you guys, now imagine they have this worksheet in front of them, right? This is, I just screenshotted the worksheet I got from the internet, but rather than me saying just do it, I say, okay, I want you guys to find the measures of the angles. And in your Pear Deck, I want you to type in the angle properties that you used. So tell me what the value is, and then name the angle property that you use and explain your thinking. So this sets students up for, and I want some of you guys to do it right now. Can I get some people responding in the Pear Deck? So go to your Pear Deck screen and type in some stuff like, what do you think angle D would be? What would angle B, A, C? Give me some reasons or some values and some reasons behind there, right? So I use Pear Deck to get into the students' thinking and share answers with the class. And I could reveal that. So now you can see this is live. People are coming in with their answers. It's not me, the teacher. This is empowering student agency. I'm going to start looking at students' answers, right? And some of them, like here, Tony's saying, well, A equals 35 because it's on the same side of the transversal as the 35-degree angle. I like how Tony's using academic vocabulary. He's talking about same side. He's talking about transversal, right? I got consecutive interior angles. I can start seeing student thought process. And then we discuss it. Like Andrea says, A equals 145 because they're supplementary. And so as a class, I let students come in with their thought process, and I share it with the class. So you can see how that feels different than me just doing these problems for them. And so Pear Deck is going to be really one of your best friends, especially for distance learning or online learning, because it's going to allow you to look into the thinking of students, right? Now, what's going to happen when you're done with the Pear Deck activity is each student will get their own copy of the slideshow. Now, there is a free version of Pear Deck and a paid version. The free version is pretty cool. Like I could go right now just on this free version and I can go show responses and it'll show people's responses and it'll be anonymous, right? So that's one big difference is the free version just has anonymous responses, whereas the paid version has individual students' names. And there's some other bells and whistles, but you could get started with the free version and immediately have that conversation, right? And yeah, most times they give it to you free for 90 days to get started. So a couple things going on. If you like Pear Deck and want to find more about Pear Deck, I put lots of links down here for Pear Deck. And then down at the bottom, my little cursor is covering it up. But Pear Deck themselves are doing weekly trainings. So that's free too. You can jump on those trainings to get the ins and outs of how to use Pear Deck by getting that Pear Deck training webinar signups through Pear Deck. So I recommend you use this as part of your tool belt when you're designing math lessons. I wanted to share with you guys some more Desmos. You had a chance to do Desmos at the very beginning, and I'm sure you're familiar with using Desmos, but if you haven't, you should include some Desmos activities. There's a ton of free Desmos activities that are already in collections that you can search up. Like there's this one, lines, angles, and transversals. Now I'm gonna show you guys just how it might look, right? Like this is an example of some of my students who use this during summer school. If you're doing a live Desmos, you can share student responses. Or if you're having them do Desmos for homework, you can take little screenshots, little camera shots of student work that night, and then the next day use that as a starting point for class discussion. So you can use live discussion mode or discussion after the fact mode, right? And you guys got a chance to do a little Desmos at the very beginning, but I recommend you start choosing some Desmos along the way. Iron Chef, another awesome activity that is an edu protocol. And two, I understand that, hey, you guys, it's lunchtime now. By this presentation, I normally do this in an hour and a half. I'm going to keep talking for like maybe another 5 more minutes just to finish it up. If you need to leave because it's lunch, feel free. You can go. It won't hurt my feelings. But this presentation, I told you, was action-packed. We're almost done, but I want to quickly go over the remaining parts so you get an idea of how you can use those activities. And if you guys could mute your microphones, that'd be great. Iron Chef is a edu protocol from that edu protocols book, where I'm going to have my students still sitting in groups, right? And I'm going to give them an Iron Chef activity, which is groups of 4 work on a slideshow. You give them, you know, one shared slideshow for each 4 students, and then they prepare it in 10 minutes. So time is of the essence. They got to prepare it quickly. And then that only takes 10 minutes. And then at the 50 minutes remaining in class, students present their work. So you can see I created like 4 slides, one for same side interior angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles. And they have to come up with a picture and then an image and explain it. And if they have time, just like the Iron Chef TV cooking show, they can use their secret sauce. That gives something for your quick finishers to work on. And it might be a Geogebra or even a Desmos graph, right? So I'm giving you guys some ideas of activities that would allow students to show what they know and do some independent practice to present back to the class. You might even have some culminating projects. And I have because this unit is on parallel lines and transversals, I have that city design project. If you remember, I'm talking about how do you connect all these pieces together. Remember that Edpuzzle video about New York City and how parallel lines and transversals are from cities? In my mind, I'm planning a whole unit that's coming together with this unit project, city design project, where I'm going to, in a Hyperdoc, I'm going to hyperlink in Desmos and other tools for students to use. And again, use these tables for them to insert their links or their responses so that when I'm grading it, they can give me their link to their Desmos account and a screenshot of what they did, right? And kind of link up all of the work that they would need in that project in that Hyperdoc with a place for them to insert their pictures, right? So lots of different tech tools that you can use to support projects and things that you're doing. Maybe you want to do Powtoons, cartoon that creates cartoons. Students can create their own cartoon as a project. So many different things you can do. I want to come back to the Hyperdoc because like I said, your head may be spinning right now, like boosh to information overload. What do I do with all of this? What I urge you to think about is using a Hyperdoc to help you plan out the unit kind of big picture. Like here's 10 activities I could do for this unit. And then figure out how those 10 activities that you could do fit into a day-by-day process and use Hyperdocs, the smaller explore, explain, apply Hyperdocs to build out your daily lessons. So I have that here. Oops. I also have, oops, let me get on the right slide, another set of Hyperdocs. This is for volume. So if you're interested in learning more about volume, there's some volume examples. And here's even more Hyperdoc examples. Like I told you, I didn't come up with Hyperdocs myself. They came from the Hyperdocs website, hyperdocs.co, and tons of fabulous resources there to get you ideas on building Hyperdocs. And when you look at Hyperdocs too, like this is one from my pre-calc class, where you can see I always leave room on the right-hand side for students to type in their work and include pictures of their paper notes. We still do problems on paper in my class, right? And how do we do it? We do it together synchronously. They take a picture of it and they pop it into the Hyperdoc and turn that into me. And I can grade that really fast on Google Classroom or on Canvas, just real quick. Do they have all their work? Yep, they do. Boom, done. So I love Hyperdocs. I appreciate you guys staying with me here an extra few minutes. Thank you. I hope you got so much out of this. Can you guys please fill out the feedback form? I would really appreciate that if you could, right? Let me get the link. It's on the last page of the slide, the last slideshow, and I'm going to put the link directly into the chat. So if you can please fill out that evaluation form for me, I would really appreciate it. I'm going to put this into the chat. Let me do it now. There you guys go. Yeah, so if you could fill that out, that's for my work with Stanford. You guys too, after you fill that out, I have my whole website here, more links, and right here's my website. You can visit that for a lot of my other presentations if you're so interested, right? And if anybody wants to stick around, I would love to answer your questions, right? I know it was a lot of stuff. And thank you for coming today. I hope you guys learned a lot. And thank you for filling out the feedback form. I really appreciate that. What I do with the Hyperdocs is I post them in Google Classroom as each student get their own copy. So I create a document for the day. I post it in Google Classroom, and I choose make a copy for every student. Yeah, you can email me. Definitely, you can email me or connect with me on Twitter. I think they're recording all the sessions. The Riverside County Office of Ed are recording all the sessions. So this should be part of it, yeah. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for coming. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, most of these things students can do on their own. Like if you're going to do quizzes, just put quizzes in homework mode and put that homework mode link in Google Classroom. Edpuzzle, my students do all on their own because that's my asynchronous like go-to tool. And slideshows, if you want it to be collaborative, then they would have to, you'd have to pair them up with a group so the group could work on it. But if it's just an individual slideshow, they could definitely do that on their own. A lot of the tools like if you gave them even Pear Deck. If you have premium Pear Deck, you can put that into student pace mode, and they can do it at their own pace. Desmos can be done at your own pace. So I kind of mix and match. Sometimes I do it live with the class, and then sometimes I let them do it on their own. I do think whatever you do, you should do it with them first so they understand how it works, and then let them go off on their own. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, you guys, thanks for coming out. And I really appreciate it. And thanks for staying. I know I went into lunch a little bit. I hope that's not too much of a problem, but yeah, I hope you guys got some great things that you can use. And I really appreciate you coming out here today. Thank you so much.